The wind swept across the endless plains with a voice that seemed older than the land itself, whispering through the dry grass and rattling against the half-collapsed fences of the forgotten ranch Jedediah Cole had bought for little more than a pocketful of coins, $22 to be exact, a price so low it carried a curse in its shadow. For no one in their right mind would give up land that once fed cattle and families, unless it had been haunted by something darker than drought. And yet Jed, a man worn by war, betrayal, and years of drifting, had taken the deed without questions, because to him the ranch was not about profit. It was about silence, about a place where the noise in his head might finally dim. But when he rode in on that first evening, the sun bleeding crimson into the horizon, he felt it, the heaviness in the air, the sense that the ranch was waiting, not abandoned, not dead, but breathing in some hidden way. And the unease followed him as he tethered his horse, pushed open the weather-beaten door of the main house, and stepped inside. Dust motes swirling like restless spirits in the fading light, his boots thudding on warped floorboards that groaned like old bones. And for hours he worked, clearing debris, lighting a fire, trying to make the place his, until the night deepened and exhaustion tugged at him. And that's when he heard it, the faintest sound, softer than breath, a whimper, almost a sob, drifting from somewhere deeper in the house. And though every instinct told him to leave it alone, to ride out into the night and never look back, Jed's feet carried him down the hall, past peeling wallpaper and broken frames, until he reached a room at the far end, its door half open, revealing only darkness within. And from that darkness came the sound again, this time clearer, the sound of someone trying not to be heard. And his hand, rough and calloused, pushed the door wide, his other hand reaching for the pistol at his belt. And in the center of the room, illuminated only by the pale wash of moonlight through a cracked window, stood a figure, small, trembling, with a burlap sack tied cruelly over her head, her thin arms bound loosely at her sides. And when Jed froze in the doorway, his breath catching, the figure spoke in a voice so raw it seemed torn from her soul. "Please, don't take the sack off," she begged, and her words carried the weight of terror, not for herself, but for him, as if what lay beneath that rough cloth was something no man should ever see. And Jed, rooted where he stood, whispered back, "Who are you? What happened here?" But she only shook her head, her whole body shuddering, repeating, "Please, don't take it off, please." And though Jed had seen horrors men should never speak of on battlefields, where screams never left him, in camps where mercy was a stranger, something about her plea shook him deeper, because it was not the sound of a victim merely asking for pity. It was the sound of someone who had already borne damnation and was terrified of passing it on. And yet he couldn't leave her like that, a human soul trapped and broken. So he stepped closer, slowly, gently, his voice low and steady. "You're safe now. Whoever did this to you, they're gone." But she whispered, "No, they're not gone, they're here. Always here, they'll never leave me." And her knees buckled. So he caught her before she hit the floor, and he felt the frailty of her body beneath his arms, felt the way she flinched even from kindness. And something in him hardened, not out of anger at her, but at the faceless cruelty that had put her in such a state. And though her words clawed at him, warning him, pleading with him, Jed found his hand rising to the knot at the back of the sack, because he couldn't bear to see a person hidden like some shameful secret. And when his fingers tugged at the twine, she fought weakly, crying out, "Don't, please don't. You'll never forget." But it was too late. The knot slipped free, and Jed slowly peeled away the sack. And when the cloth came off, the breath left his chest in a soundless exhale, his knees nearly giving, because what he saw left him frozen. The face beneath was not only bruised and battered by human hands, but marked by something older, something carved deep into her skin and symbols he had only glimpsed once before, long ago, in a desert fort where an old Apache elder had warned soldiers of curses born from desecrated ground. And now those same jagged patterns marred her cheeks, her brow, her neck, glowing faintly in the moonlight like wounds that would never heal. And yet behind the horror of it all were her eyes, wide, wet, pleading, not with madness but with unbearable humanity. Eyes that begged him not to recoil, not to turn away, not to confirm the lie she had been forced to believe, that she was unclean, cursed, beyond saving. And though Jed's heart pounded, though the room seemed to tighten around him, he did not let go. He held her, whispering, "You're not what they did to you. You're not," and she collapsed against him, sobbing into his chest. And for the first time since he had bought that cursed ranch, Jed knew why fate had dragged him there, because this land, this house, this broken girl were bound by the same darkness that had bound him. And maybe, just maybe, his purpose was not to escape his past, but to face it, to fight it, to carve light out of the ruin. And as the storm outside began to rise, rain lashing the windows, thunder splitting the sky, Jed lifted her gently, carrying her toward the fire he had lit. And though the shadows danced like restless spirits, he felt a strange calm, for he knew, now that the sack was never meant to hide her from the world, it was meant to hide the world from her, to convince her she was nothing but a vessel for pain. But Jed Cole, a man broken and remade by war, would not let that stand, not while there was breath in his lungs and fire in his veins. And as he wrapped her in a blanket, whispering promises he wasn't sure he could keep, he felt her trembling steady, just slightly, as if somewhere deep within, a seed of hope had been planted, fragile but alive. And that night, with the storm raging and the curse hanging heavy over the land, Jed vowed that whatever devils had marked her, whatever evil still lingered in the shadows of that ranch, he would face it. Because sometimes a man doesn't choose his battles, sometimes the battles choose him. And in that moment, holding her, he chose not to walk away, but to fight for the soul of a girl who had already lost everything but the will to beg. And from that vow a story was born, one of blood, redemption, and the kind of courage that is not found on battlefields, but in the fragile act of staying, of refusing to let the broken remain broken. And if you've walked this far with me into the heart of the tale, then I ask you, my friend, to stay with us still, because more stories wait in the dust of the Old West. More voices cry out from forgotten cabins and cursed plains. And by subscribing to this channel, you ride with us into those shadows, into those fires, where the human spirit is tested and legends are born. So hit that button, join this trail, and together let's keep these heartland tales alive.